because you can have two brothers that grew up in the same household, same parents, same structure, same value system, same everything. One goes out to be a criminal, one goes out to be CEO of a company. What's the difference? They grew up in the same environment, around the same people, and all of that. They had different thought processes about what they wanted out of life and how they wanted to achieve those things.
Yo, dig this. Y'all enjoy part one of my conversation with Antoine Hill. Enjoy part one of my conversation with Antoine Hill. Welcome to Impact and Fulfillment with Coach Mike D, where you'll gain practical wisdom and dynamic insight from amazing conversations to live your best life. All right. Yeah. So we've been conversing for a few minutes, but we're going to go ahead and, just kind of pick up because this is going to be a random conversation with my guy, Antoine Ace Hill, Mr. Rethink How You Move. Yeah. We see it on the video. If you're listening to the audio, you don't see he got a t-shirt on that says and I got to give him a sidebar before, because again, this is going to be a round robin. We just talking about life here because there's a lot going on. And I think this is going to be something that a lot of people need to hear. Rethink How You Move, brother. I use that on a very regular basis. I give you credit, obviously, and I was like, my guy, I was down at UT the other day speaking with some folks and talking about, athletes and mentorship, et cetera. And I said, there's a VFL. And for those that are listening that aren't in the whole UT culture, VFL is Vol for Life. Basically folks who are affiliated with the University of Tennessee, played ball, et cetera, they're considered VFLs or Vols for Life. But I mentioned to somebody down there that it's a VFL, the guy that I'm speaking to right now, my guy, Antoine Hill, that the brand that he's created, their tagline is rethink how you move, or rethink the way you move. And I think that is so poignant, especially in all this political BS that we got going on, but just in life in general. But I mentioned to the person down there, I was just like, this concept is something that young athletes, young students, but everybody needs to be very mindful of. What are your thoughts about that, brother?
Well,
and we'll get into your intro and stuff later too. So
I must say, having created it, I wholeheartedly agree. And just quick backstory. The premise of that, or that tagline, came from I have a transportation company. We do ground transportation, luxury ground transportation for everybody everywhere. But when I was changing the name of the company from A Concierge Services to Ace Elite Services, I was thinking of a tagline, and I started thinking of how I do my transportation business and what differentiates me from everybody else. And it's the service, the quality of service, it's the professionalism, it's the professional chauffeurs, et cetera, et cetera. And so my tagline became rethink the way you move, reaching out to customers like, this is how you normally get from point A to point B with higher services. Now rethink that and think of a better way to travel. Now, fast forward to the pandemic, we're stuck in the house, nobody's doing anything. I wrote a book. Mm-hmm. The book was about my life and about how I transitioned from different jobs to different eras in my life, to different segments, to different ups and downs and all that stuff. And along the way, at each point, I would think about the decisions that I was making at that time. And then I said, if I want to do something different, I need to make better decisions. Mm-hmm. And so as I progressed through life, it became Rethink the Way You Move. And so hence the name of the book. Then the clothing line, because people's like, man, I like your book. You have a clothing line, this, that, and the third. Like, I don't, but I should get one. So came up with Ace Apparel. And again, the tagline for the clothing line was Rethink the Way You Move. And I don't care where I go, what part of the country I'm in, people see the shirt, like, I like that. You're like, that makes sense. And it's applicable, as you said, to everybody in all walks of life, in different sectors of their life, whether they're athletes, whether they're changing careers, whether they're whatever. If you don't like that outcome that you're getting, rethink the way you move.
Rethink the way you move. Like, it's, to me, it's such a powerful statement. And it also is like radical responsibility or radical accountability as well. because it's not rethink what's moving, it's rethink the way you move. And that puts the onus on you to take the steps. That puts the responsibility on you to take the action, but it also puts the responsibility on you to think, right? And so
that's critical.
Yeah, and it's very critical. But the thing is, what you come to realize for a lot of people is a lot of people are challenged with taking personal responsibility and they want to pawn it off on someone else, right? And so, like for me, like in the executive coaching space or in the consulting space or whatever, I enjoy coaching and consulting because I'm not telling you what to do. I'm prompting and I'm helping you to see things through different lenses from different angles, but I'm not making the decision for you. It's up to you to take the decision. It's up to you to take the action. It's up to you to put the plan in place and to execute on it. I'm just here to help you think about it a little differently. I'm here to actually help you rethink the way you move. Right.
Go ahead. No, I was gonna say, you hear the slogan all the time that you are the sum of your experiences, or you're the sum of a collective of your environment that you grew up in. Or now people say, you become a replica of the 5 people that you spend the most time with.
Yep.
To agree, I think that's true, but I think we're missing it because, again, I think we are the sum of what we think about the most. And the reason why I say that is because you can have 2 brothers that grew up in the same household, same parents, same structure, same value system, same everything. One goes out to be a criminal, one goes out to be CEO of a company. What's the difference? They grew up in the same environment, around the same people, and all of that. They had different thought processes about what they wanted out of life and how they wanted to achieve those things. So I think, again, using the word think, I think we are the sum of the 5 things that we think about the most every day.
That's interesting. The things we think about the most every
as
day,
opposed to the people that we are surround ourselves with.
But so now I think you jump into this whole bucket of the chicken or the conversation of the chicken or the egg, right? What spawns you to think about that? So
it doesn't matter.
Well, no, actually it does matter because, you don't necessarily cultivate thoughts without some type of stimulus, right? Some level of exposure, some level of something. Yes, there are epigenetic or outside factors. And then you have this, there's some science that shows like the generational trauma gets passed down. And so you have these instances or these things within your DNA that potentially express themselves. And, the old folks back in the day used to say about a kid, that baby done been here before. Right. And so I think there is some of that. There's also some of it when it comes to experiences, but even as it pertains to your thoughts, it really comes down to what is that thing that's spawning your thoughts, because they just don't appear out of thin air. And that's the whole part that, I'm kind of the chicken and the egg conversation.
Well, I took the chicken and the egg from a different angle.
Okay.
Some people might think of it like, okay, do we think of where we want to be in life based on what we see in our environment growing up? Or that's the chicken before the egg concept.
Okay. I'm following. Okay.
The egg before the chicken concept is that whatever plot you're given in life when you're born, that's it. You just have to make the most of it.
Okay.
So when I said it doesn't matter,
okay,
where I was born, who I was born to, the environment that I grew up in can influence my decision making. It can influence what I think about, but none of that determines where I end up. Meaning you could be born with a silver spoon in your mouth and end up going to jail. You can be born in the ghetto on Section 8 and then a billionaire.
Yeah. Okay.
So when I say it doesn't matter, I'm saying that, again, my tagline is rethink the way you move. You want something different in life, think of a different path, a different alternative, different actions to get to a different meaning, to a different end. So,
but it still comes back to the notion of what's
determined by where we started.
No, I agree. Now, and I think
So
that,
that's why.
but I think that's totally different. Like again, you know, you can have similar inputs and totally different outputs, right? Equal inputs do not equate to equal outputs. Everybody's math does not math the same way because it's us, each individual. Even identical twins are still two unique individuals, even though they share the same DNA, right? And so, in being the same house with the same access to resources, etc., they're still two different people. Okay.
Sure.
So therefore, equal inputs do not necessarily equate to the exact same output where they marry the same type, they marry identical twins and make the same amount of money. There's no guarantee on that, right? Because there are other variables in play.
But can they still reach the same plateau, even if they do it different ways?
They could, but the reality is it's not even about, see, what I was talking about with the chicken or the egg, I was coming at it through the lens of your thoughts and the actions you take matter. But at times we have to take a step back and think about what is inspiring that thought. Because without that particular thought, and that's where the chicken versus the egg, it's like, yes, I want to get to a different destination or I want something different in my life. But the reality is without an exposure at times, I don't even realize that there are other alternatives out there. Right.
Sure.
I mean, you think about back in the day, say the turn of the 20th century before cars, you know, hit the road. Right. And everybody was on a horse and some dude came running around talking about this thing called a car. Folks are like, what the hell are you talking about, man? What is this? Wheels and a engine. We've seen a locomotive, but we've never seen anything on the road like that. You're tripping, right? Because they've never been able to see that. They've been exposed to it. You fast forward 25 years, and it's odd to see somebody riding a horse down the street.
But it's interesting that you say that because I always have this conversation because I am in transportation industry.
Absolutely.
And transportation has evolved over the years and all of that. What is the earliest form of transportation?
The earliest form of transportation I would say is walking.
Outside of walking, assisted transportation.
Oh, assisted transportation. The earliest form of assisted transportation outside of walking or being carried by someone, I guess that would fall in the same category as walking.
Right.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So if it weren't that, the earliest form of transportation outside of walking was probably, I would say probably some type of flotation boat or something. That would probably be my
flotation boat.
Yeah. Canoe.
The wheel come into place.
I would probably even say that. I'd probably say the boat. I'm like, if you weren't walking or you weren't on the back of a animal or something, you were, you know.
So probably a horse was the best, or a mule was probably the
something like that. Some kind of animal. Yeah.
Now, you said boat.
Yes.
Is there a form of transportation that's ever been invented that does not exist today?
What do you mean?
Flotation device, the boat. Do we still use boats today?
Yes, absolutely.
Horse. Do people
still use? Absolutely.
Train.
Yep, absolutely.
Whatever. There is no form of transportation is the only industry that continues to innovate, but it never completely goes away from its original source.
That is interesting. Dude, okay. Now that's interesting because I never thought about it like that. So once a form of transportation is indoctrinated or adopted, that form of transportation, it might not be as dominant or as prevalent as it was, but it never goes away. It's always still an option.
Yes.
That is fascinating. I never thought about it.
Horseback ride. People still get carriage rides. You go.
That's right. They ride camels. They still ride bikes. They still, gasoline cars. Everything's moving to electric. So now it's electric cars, whatever. That is interesting. Yeah, I never thought about it like that.
Yes. So I think my industry is foolproof in terms of being obsolete or anything like that. But
so now, okay. Again, because this is wide-ranging conversation. You open up an opportunity. So your industry is foolproof as it pertains to transportation in general. Okay. Yeah. But the mode of transportation will adapt and change, correct?
Sure. 100%.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Just making sure.
And I've positioned myself, which I'm sure we'll get into later, to take the responsibility of the evolution of transportation off of myself and put it upon other people.
So you know what? Okay, we can go into other subjects later, but right now let's go ahead and jump into that. So the evolution of transportation and how your transportation service has positioned you to take the onus off of you as the transportation provider to others across the board. How have you done that? Talk a little bit about, ACE Elite Services and how that's kind of evolved, not kind of, how it has evolved over the course of the last few years.
Interesting. Instead of going back to the origin in 2007, let's go back to the year before the pandemic.
Okay.
2019. Or let's go back 2016.
Okay.
I was living in Atlanta, and then a series of fortunate and unfortunate events migrated me to California. Mm-hmm. When I came to California, even though I had a national base in terms of we had affiliates, so we provide ground transportation, luggage ground transportation for regular people, celebrities, entertainers, athletes, you name it, Fortune 500, CEOs, some of the wealthiest people in the world. We've provided transportation for them, ground transportation. When I moved to California, I had to reshift, rethink, like, okay, now I'm in a new market. How do I generate revenue? And what is the quickest way to generate revenue? And it was like, I really don't know anybody hadn't had any affiliates in the area. And I was in San Diego at the time. And I said, why don't I start like a monthly membership? And what I was doing is like the average cost of ground transportation to the airport was between $180 to $100. Mm-hmm. And I said, instead of a client paying $80 to $100 for one transfer, why don't I give them $500, $450?
Okay.
Now, I only had one vehicle out in San Diego at the time, and I was like, it's going to cost me to spend more money in fuel and all of this and not make as much profit. But by me offering the same services at a substantially discounted rate, I can increase my viewership, as it were. Or I can increase my brand exposure. I can get more clients. People start, and all that stuff. And so then once you have a base of clientele in this market, then you can begin to elevate your prices. So that's how the membership model started. It was very analog, very antiquated at the time. It was like send an email of where you want to go, what time you want to be picked up, and then we'll call you back once we have a schedule. Okay. Fast forward to 2019. By then, we had did a mobile version of the app. It was still analog in its nature, where somebody can fill out a request of, I want to get picked up at 7 a.m. I'm going to Tyson Airport, 3 people, 3 pieces of luggage. And then we'll get the email, and then we'll call them back or email them back like, okay, it's been confirmed. Here's your driver detail. Here's the vehicle information, et cetera, et cetera. So that was like a 3-step process. Mm-hmm. I went to a NBA Tech Summit in San Francisco in 2019. I don't know if you remember Shelvin Mack. He used to play for the Atlanta Hawks. Morgan Butler and all that. He was a friend of mine, so he invited me out to that. And Andre Iguodala used to put it on every year. It was called the NBA Tech Summit. Mm-hmm. But it was bring all these venture capitalists, all these tech people. And really what he was trying to do is show NBA players how to diversify their funds. Like, okay, stop buying cars, stop buying house, stop buying all this jewelry. Invest. Put your money in tech. That's invest. Right. And I'm bringing together all the smartest people in the world. The owner of the Sacramento Kings was there. Different people from different ventures were there. Have you ever seen Super Pump? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You like it?
You said Super Pumped?
Super Pump. It was the story about Uber.
Yes, I watched a couple of the episodes of that. I didn't watch the whole thing. That was like the Travis, the Kalanick, and all of that. Yep. I watched a couple. I didn't watch the full thing, but I watched a few of the episodes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you remember early on, in the first episode, I think it's only like 8 episodes.
Okay, yeah, what many?
Travis was trying to get a meeting with one of the biggest VCs in Silicon Valley, Bill Gurley.
I remember. Yep, and Gurley ended up coming on. I remember that. Yep, yes. I remember that.
So I met the real Bill Gurley in San Francisco at this NBA Tech Summit in 2019.
Okay.
And he was talking about his journey with Uber and how everything got started and all of that. And initially, he put $12 million into Uber in 2008 for 14.5%.
Lord have mercy. Okay.
When everything went down, I don't know if you finished, but inevitably they ended up kicking Travis Kalanick out of his own company. Mm-hmm. They went public. They did all this stuff. Bill Gurley ended up selling 13.5% of his shares and keeping 1%.
Okay.
That $12 million initial investment, you know what he ended up cashing out at?
Probably in about the 8 to 10 billion range, something like that.
Well, no, the valuation was like 40 billion, and he had
10%. So he
had 30%. He ended up cashing out at 900 million.
900 million. Yeah.
From 12.
Okay. Great return.
Great return. But anyway, he was on this panel discussion, and listened to him. And after the panel discussion, it's kind of like a small crowd. He's walking through the crowd, and I pull his coattail. And I gave him my 30-second elevator pitch. It's like, hey, this is me. This is where I'm from. This is what I'm doing. I have a mobile app. It's going to provide airport transfers, people all over the country with a subscription based. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is something that hasn't happened in transportation ever, where you combine luxury transportation with a subscription.
Okay.
He said to me, I think you're onto something.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I really like this. And he turned around and walked away.
Mm-hmm.
Got about 5 feet, turned back around and came back and said, here's my email. Send me the specs and everything about this mobile app.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I came back to LA, and I was in LA, and I called my lawyers, and they said, if you send it to them, you'll never see it again.
Mm-hmm.
Uber would have it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a lesson about being first in the market. Don't really introduce what you have and what you're trying to do if it's new and innovative until you get in the marketplace. Then once it's in the marketplace, people can steal it. They can only become a part of it or buy you out of it.
That's right.
But
pause. No. So that's interesting. Just the whole notion of like the first mover advantage. Once it's already in the marketplace, then it's yours, or you have the first mover advantage, and you're not. It's not like NDAs and all this kind of stuff having to go down before non-disclosure agreements, for those that don't know what an NDA is.
And most VCs would never sign an NDA anyway.
That's right. So because they talk to so many people all across the board, et cetera. And so that's interesting that it kind of, instead of it being a situation in which you got an investment, it was confirmation that you were on the right track because you generated interest.
Exactly. From somebody who's been in this space and at the top of this space. At the time, Uber was the pinnacle of transportation with the mobile app.
Interesting. Now, hold on. Now you said something about how this has never been done. This has never been done in the car space, but what about like in the airline, like the Marquis Jet and the NetJets and all the different fractional share where they're playing? Is that similar, but just with airplanes versus cars?
It's been done in part in the airspace.
Okay.
And I used to be a member of JetSmarter. And the way JetSmarter works is that you pay an annual fee, and now you have access to all of these private jet flights. Now you can charter your own flight. And for people who don't know, if you want to charter a private jet, it's funny. I had a conversation with my brother yesterday about private jets, and he was like, "Why are you having a conversation with me?" But flying private is way more affordable than what people think. They just the stigma of private flights is like it's $1 million. But with JetSmarter, you pay an annual fee, and now you have access to see all of these private flights that are traveling from point A to point B around the country, around the world on a daily basis.
Okay.
And what happens is when people charter a plane to go from New York to LA, they charter the whole aircraft, obviously.
But now, they only need a certain number of seats. They might have need 5 seats instead of 5 open seats. Yeah.
And if you're on a G4, you can have anywhere from 9 to 12 seats. Now, if that family has to pay for that whole flight. And from LA to New York, depending on the size of the plane, you can be from $25,000 to $60,000.
Mm-hmm.
Now, by them booking it through JetSmarter says, okay, if you only want your family to be on this plane and there's 5 of you and you have 7 seats left, just pay the whole $50,000. Mm-hmm. But if you want to reduce your costs, we'll still take you from LA to New York or New York to LA. You can open up these other 7 seats. And if somebody wants to hitch a ride, they can do that. Now, if we been a member of JetSmarter, that one seat may cost me $2,000.
Okay. Which would be comparable to probably a first class flight.
Exactly.
From New York to LA.
Exactly. Funny thing is, one day I saw a flight from LA to Teterboro, New York. Okay. And it was leaving out on a Friday and it was returning on a Tuesday. Then by being a member, I had access to this. But what happened was the seat was free because the person who chartered the flight, they was like, well, we just open up the other seats if somebody want to get on it, but we don't want anything from it.
Interesting.
So I grabbed the seat. It was like, because I wanted to go to New York. Rodney, my best friend, he was in New Jersey. Like, I can go spend some time with him or whatever. And really was just like, you know what? I can get on a G4 and go across country and come back for $0. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
So I grabbed the seat. When I got to the Clearport, the family had an emergency where they couldn't go. The charter was already paid for. I had the whole flight to myself.
Wow.
From LA to New York on a G4 with $0 cost.
Wow. That's fascinating.
So there's advantages. So in part, in air travel, you do have memberships, but when you have these air memberships, you have a cost just to be a part of it, to have access to it.
That's right.
And
sometimes on top of that, you still have to buy so that you pay the airline membership just to get access to
a free seat that's on this.
Yes, but you still have to pay for that seat depending on and that's negotiable depending on the flight, the leg, the whatever. So you just pay for access to basically get on the plane.
Exactly. And so you had different companies doing it, like JetSet. They had a $99 a monthly fee where you can subscribe, and they never really got off the ground. Then they folded, then they try to reintroduce themselves or rebrand themselves or whatever. But they was going to give you a cheaper version of that same sort of platform. So what I did in transportation was like, let me bundle together a certain number of trips, airport transfers, and put a fixed cost to it.
Okay.
And that fixed cost is going to be substantially less than what they will pay to go to and from on a single trip, and be very comparable to what it would cost for them to use a taxi or a ride share such as Uber or Lyft. Now, the advantage in doing that is that I still give the customers access to professional chauffeurs, luxury vehicles, and full automation through a mobile app.
Okay.
But at a substantially reduced cost. So now for customers used to paying Uber prices or rideshare prices, I'm not bad talking about Uber or anything, but if they're used to paying $40 to go to the airport, and sometimes it may be $50 depending on surge prices or whatever. But when the car shows up to pick them up, it's a Toyota Prius or it's a Honda Accord. They got a baby in the back. They got dog hair. They got this and that. Whatever. Now they can pay that same price and still have a professional vehicle show up and a professional chauffeur. And now their service and their experience has been elevated, but their cost has not.
Now hold on. Now this goes to the monthly cost. So this is valuable to an individual who is, monthly traveling back and forth to the airport, who's using the service on a regular basis due to business, basically business or whatever. Like if you travel a lot, this makes sense, correct?
If you travel a lot, it makes extreme sense. If you travel little, it still makes sense. Case in point, I had a friend call me yesterday. He was in New York. He said, "Can I use your app as a one-off? I just, I'm flying into Atlanta later in the week. Then I'm flying back to Los Angeles on Sunday." I said, "You can use it as a one-off, but you're going to pay as an a la carte service, but you're going to pay the full price of a transfer." I said, "But you can do the membership, and the base membership is $210 for 5 transfers anywhere in the country.
Okay.
He said, well, I just looked at that, and he said, he looked up the price to get picked up in New York on Thursday and go to JFK. He said it was $200 for that one transfer.
Now, is that with one of the rideshare services, or is that with another like black?
That's like a black car limousine service.
Okay, gotcha.
Rideshare, that it'll be about $80.
Okay, gotcha.
Now, I said you could pay that, or you could pay $210 for my monthly membership. A vehicle will pick you up Thursday in New York, take you to the airport. When you get to Atlanta, a vehicle will pick you up, take you to your hotel. Mm-hmm. When you leave on Sunday and go back to LA, a vehicle will pick you up and take you to your house. Mm. All of that's still for $210, and you're not paying any additional charges, surcharges, anything like that. Mm. So for the cost of one limousine company in New York, he can have 5 of those services.
Wow. And that's 5 transfers. So that's basically, so each trip is basically 2, correct?
Each trip is 4, technically 4.
Okay.
So when you leave your house, go to the airport. When you get to your destination, to the hotel. When you're going to leave destination, hotel, back to the airport, and then you get home, back to the house. So if you travel once a month, our base membership could be very applicable to you and very cost saving, time saving, and all that stuff. If you travel once a week for business, doing our unlimited services would probably be your best mode. And that's $250 a month for unlimited transfers. And then every transfer is $35.
You said every transfer is $35? On
the unlimited plan. So you pay $250 a month to have access to unlimited car service.
Okay. And then each transfer is $35.
It's only $35.
And so that would be, I'm just putting it together. So that's 4 transfers for each trip. So it would be 35 times 4 for each trip on top of the $250. But when you're talking about black car service, and now what type of cars are we talking about when it comes to the transfers? Is it like, elevated stuff, or is it?
We're talking about vehicles that are 3 years or newer. We're talking in terms of SUVs for Suburbans, Chevy Suburbans, Cadillac Escalades, Yukon Denali XLs, or Lincoln Navigator L's livery versions. When we talk about sedans, you're talking about the XCS Cadillac, the Mercedes-Benz. We do use Tesla Model X, their SUV, Tesla. And we use like the Genesis G90. It's full livery black car service. It's not, nobody's going to pick you up in a Toyota Prius. Nobody's going to pick you up in a Honda Accord. These are fine automobiles for personal use, but not for, nobody's going to pick you up in a 2-seater BMW to go to the airport where you're sitting holding your carry-on in your
lap. Yeah,
exactly. So, in terms of now, the unlimited plan is more for corporate people.
Yeah, absolutely.
You just sign somebody up for app because they're used to paying. If you go to LA and get a transfer in a black car service, you're paying $175.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
If you're in Atlanta, Georgia, you're paying $95 to $110 per transfer.
Okay.
So obviously, it's a cost saving from a corporate standpoint, but it's still convenient because it's fully automated.
Yeah.
You download the app. You put in your information, it goes out to drivers in that area, driver accepted. You get a notification, this is your driver, this is what they look like, this is the vehicle, this is their phone number, this is their license plate number, this is when they're going to pick you up. You see when the driver gets to your location, just like Uber, you can track them on the map and all that stuff. And then when they get picked up, they take you to the airport, drop you off. You don't have to pay them any money. You don't have to do anything beyond that. Everything is automated.
Now, and then do you have, is it just in the United States? Is it just North America? Is it global? Like what's the current scope of, your coverage?
Right now it's just in the US, it has the ability or it has the capabilities to be global right now, but you have different laws and different jurisdictional things in each country that it's not beneficial for us to segue into now. Mm-hmm. As we grow and get to that point, then we'll do that. And we're taking the business model of how Uber and Lyft started. Uber started off of an idea from Travis Kalanick when he was in Paris, but he went back to San Francisco and got it started there. Then he moved to Washington, Oregon. Then he moved to New York, and then just start facilitating across the country. Because we are an airport membership service, then obviously somebody is leaving one city and flying to another. We provide services all over the U.S., but we're only starting marketing in specific demographics because we don't want to start marketing nationwide and then overload our system where we don't have the capacity to fulfill. So right now, we are advertising directly in Atlanta, Georgia, and in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Because we can facilitate in those two areas. Although if somebody's flying from Atlanta to New York or Atlanta, Miami, we're still going to be able to provide services on that back end. We're just not advertising in those other markets yet. And once,
go ahead.
I would say once we have a good foothold in a market, and inevitably because you are doing something in the market, you're going to have growth in other areas. Like we came to Atlanta. We bought a house in Atlanta. You mentioned we were bi-coastal at the beginning of September. I touched down in September. We got everything situated with the house in about a week and a half, which was remarkable in itself. And then I went out and we recruited 56 drivers in the Atlanta market by itself.
Interesting. Okay. Now, and so that being said, there might be some trade secrets or whatever that you have within your organization, but so how is it? Are these subcontractors of other transportation companies? Are these independent vehicle owners that are in network with, your organization, or are these all drivers that are a part of your organization?
All three. We have drivers that are part of so we have over 1,500 direct affiliates that we've worked with, and I've been in this business for 17 years.
Okay.
So we have a great foundation of affiliates all over the country that we use to facilitate our clients. So we just tapped into those resources initially. We also came and reached out to other independent operators in the area because independent operators, they have a TCP number, they have a social permit, they have an airport permit, and they may put their name on a business card and say, I do transportation.
Okay.
But they accept work from all other companies.
Gotcha.
They may go and drive for Uber. They have their own clientele. Now we're going to say, okay, continue doing what you're doing, but we have another way of providing services to clients that you already facilitate, and you can get paid in this way. Join our platform. Don't stop what you're doing. You still can do what you're doing, but join our platform as well. Inevitably, we think that our platform is going to overtake the revenue that they're making with all these other entities, and they can just use our platform primarily. Okay. That is the goal. But we also have companies that may have 30 drivers and 30 vehicles. We reach out to those companies and say, okay, introduce our platform to them, and they have the ability to put their company on our platform and all of their drivers or some of their drivers on the platform. So we use all of those modes. And then Uber does have a black car service or an SUV service. Some of those drivers that drive for Uber or Lyft in their elevated tiers also work for other limo companies. And so we just give them another option of revenue.
So that's interesting. So when I'm hearing what you're talking about, like, I guess, have you thought about it through the corporate lens of, okay, you say Los Angeles and Atlanta, you know what? It might make sense for me to, in essence, identify every major corporate entity in both Los Angeles and Atlanta, and they're probably hundreds, if not thousands, if you collectively look at both of them, and find or create some type of corporate transportation partnership with those specific entities, especially if they're headquartered in either Atlanta or Los Angeles, and just be their exclusive airport transfer partner, so to speak, versus this being something that's out. I mean, you can do it for the individuals, but kind of looking at the verticals here, have you thought about it through that particular lens?
Yes, and we do both. So, and it's funny, I did a financial projection for the rest of 2024. all of 2025 and all of 2026. I did that 2 nights ago.
Okay.
And case in point, we believe that we're going to segue. You're going to have both sides of it. You're going to have the consumer side, just the regular consumer side, then you're going to have the corporate side.
Okay.
We believe that in 2025, the consumer side is going to initially outpace the corporate side in the first half of the year. Second half of next year, it's going to balance itself out.
And going
2026,
corporate,
you're going to see a reversal where it's going to be majority corporate, and then you're still going to have that consumer base. We don't want to eliminate that consumer base because we think that is something that's going to. We want to do two things. One, we want to put money into the chauffeurs' pockets.
Okay.
And provide a stable living for them in this transportation industry is tricky.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have ebbs and flows. You have summer months where things die down in certain areas, and then they pick back up in the winter months when business travel. In other rural areas, you have things that pick up in the summer because of concerts, because of entertainment activities, because of this, that, and the third, and then it dies off in the fall and winter because it's not a big economic base in terms of corporate travel and all of that. Okay. So how do they still make money in a downturn? Now, if you provide a service where that can speak and resonate with individual consumers as well as corporations, then you kind of level that out.
Well, hold on. So the reason I was saying with the corporate, I'm talking about on your end having the corporate contracts, whereas you can deploy the independent drivers or the ones that are in contract or in network with AC Elite Services. They then are working, but they're just driving corporate clients as opposed to individual clients. So, I mean, I'm not saying that they miss out on the opportunity. I was just thinking through the lens of,
we are already in talks with the company. I'm not going to name the company.
Yeah.
They have 187,000 employees that travel. That's not the total of all their employees, but they have 187,000 that travel. And, excuse me, they use a company right now, a primary company for their transportation. And I know that company well, and I know that company outsources a lot of the work because they can facilitate 187,000 clients.
Absolutely.
But I'm talking with a senior level executive that uses our services now.
Okay.
The company that they are contracted with employs me to provide some of their services. Okay. And so with this mobile app, it's just a better way for those employees to travel. And so we're going to start off with a small department in that company, let them see how everything works, let them see how everything, get them all onboarded onto the app and all that stuff, and then progress to where eventually we will be the provider for this particular company and their 187,000 employees that travel. And most of those drivers in those areas, in those 5 cities that they are predominantly in, will probably strictly drive for that company.
Absolutely.
So yes.
I think, and that's the thing. So as you were talking, that's where my mind was going. I'm just like, dude, this sounds like a corporate play, like in the long run. And again, you still do the consumer stuff, and it almost sounds like the consumer side is in essence a gateway to the corporate, meaning the individuals who would take advantage of it are not going to be just a random dude. It's going to be business owners, people in business or whatever, who have direct relationships or are directly affiliated with corporate entities already. You treat them well, then the conversation can open up with, well, what is your corporation or what is your company currently using for, Black Car Service? And it makes me think, I remember when I was in the pharmaceutical industry and we'd have national meetings, regional meetings, et cetera. They used to all in certain, the companies I used to work for, I think both of them exclusively used Boston Coach at the time. This was like years ago. This was,
Boston Coach is still around.
Yeah, 10, 15 years ago. But it wasn't just in Boston. It was in various cities. I remember seeing the little thing about who was picking us up in the Lincoln Town cars or the whatever. It was always Boston Coach. And so they had exclusive partnerships with them. And as you were talking, I was just like, especially like thinking Atlanta and Los Angeles, building those corporate entities, those corporate relationships where you become the exclusive airport transfer provider for all of these major entities.
Oh, absolutely. That's where we're going. And a nugget for people who are in business. Never walk into a company that you don't know anybody in that company or know anything about that company, and they don't know anything about you, and say, hey, I sell t-shirts. Do you want one?
Mm-hmm. Come on.
Never
Come on.
do that.
No.
Find somebody that you know who has access to that company, who works in that company, has friends in that company, or travel and use that company. Sell them a t-shirt and then allow them to passively introduce that t-shirt to that company or the entity. The reason why I said that is because we want to be careful about how we do things and how we introduce ourselves to the market. I know a lot of people who work for Fortune 500 companies or other big corporations. And I was telling my driver in this area, because he was like, man, we should take some cars and go give it to this jet company or go give it to this company or give it to this. I said, do you know anybody in that company? And they said, no. And I said, well, we're not going to do that. What we're going to do you find somebody who utilizes that company's services or somebody who works for that company? Then he said, yes. Then I said, okay, let's go talk to them.
Relationships. Dude, it's as simple as this. It's not what you know or who you know. It's who knows you.
Exactly.
So listen, if LeBron walks in the room, everybody in the room knows, yo, that's LeBron. If LeBron says, yo, Ace, Mike, what's up? Then they're like, hold up, pause. How does he know these brothers? Right?
Exactly.
And that's the whole point, is like, if relationships, everything starts with relationships. And as you kind of going back to our initial conversation of rethink the way you move, you know, it's not always about selling and telling. It's about cultivating relationships. You know, individuals that I've coached over the years, you know, especially ones that go to conferences or go to these meetings and all of that. And a lot of people, most people honestly hate meetings and conferences and all of that. It's kind of a drag for a lot of folks, but it's to rethink the way you move about it, right? In a sense that when I've coached individuals who are headed to conferences, I'm like, dude, you're not here to learn anything. You're here to collect and nurture relationships. That's it. No more, no less. And it's like an unlock for a lot of people, because again, like in big collective groups, rarely you're going to get the intellectual breakthroughs and all of that stuff. It's really, you're there to rub shoulders with, to collect and nurture relationships. And if you collect and nurture relationships, and you know this based off of your history, and I know this based off of mine, deals don't get done in the boardroom. They're formalized in the boardroom. The deals get done over a drink. The deals get done playing golf or in the gym or in the sauna or at the park or whatever. That's when all the stuff happens. You just go to the boardroom to take the pictures and have the lawyers sign what they need to sign. Right?
In the cap.
Say it again?
In the cap room.
There you go. And that's it. That's it. That's the whole point. Like everything, but it goes back to what you were saying about the power of relationships. And again, I think this whole rethink the way you move is so important, because a lot of people get into this notion of, I'm trying to do all of this stuff without effectively developing a relationship first.
Exactly.
And dude, Earl Graves, and I forgot what book it was he wrote, but I remember reading a story about Earl Graves. And one of the things he mentioned was he used to go to some kind of dry cleaner to get a shirt cleaned. And every time he would go in there, the person was always trying to pitch him a business idea and sell him something or whatever. He ended up told the guy he was going to stop coming here, because every time I come in here, you're trying to pitch me something. And the whole method, or the whole point of the story, was you don't pitch something to someone that you don't have an actual relationship with. Build and cultivate the relationship first. Then you have the opportunity to offer whatever it is you have to offer.
Exactly. And it's I'm excited, and I don't know, you can tell by my voice, the audience, how I'm barely containing my excitement, but I know what we're on the precipice of. I've been, they said it takes 10 years to become an overnight success.
Oh, yeah.
And although I've been successful to whatever degree in this industry for a number of years, I'm 9 years in developing this app.
Okay.
And I understand that companies, not only companies, brands have, I don't know if you've ever heard of the term a critical mass.
Yep, 100%.
And it only happens once in a company. It only happens once in an entity where you have this critical mass, and it shifts from ground level and it skyrockets.
Yep.
Now you can continue to grow, but you're only going to have that one time where you have critical mass. And I think about to iPhone. When iPhone first came out, it was only exclusive to AT&T.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were with Verizon or T-Mobile or whatever, you couldn't get an iPhone.
Absolutely.
And everybody was excited about, oh, look, I got an iPhone and I got this. And it was growing. Apple was growing, but they hit a critical mass after that 5-year exclusivity with AT&T, where it opened up to the whole marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happened, it absolutely skyrocketed.
Well, hold on. Yo, I hope you enjoyed part 1 of my conversation with Antoine Hill. Now, go check out part 2 anywhere you get your podcast. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and follow Coach Mike D everywhere on social media. Y'all be blessed, well, and wise.